and I wanted to teach. I wanted to be in the
Yes.
classroom. I wanted to be working with students because that's what it's been about for me. Like it's been about that the entire time.
Welcome to Coffee Break Classroom, brewed for higher ed, where teaching meets good vibes. We're just two friends chopping it up. Here you can expect a blend of ridiculous classroom stories, a little educational research, and some practical teaching techniques. So grab your coffee, settle in, and let's talk teaching without the grading.
I have a loud laugh.
I do too, so it's going to happen. It's a good thing. It's a good thing. um all right, I just want to give me 30 seconds. I'm just jotting down my notes. I don't
I'm
want to
so
miss.
glad that you started the recording while you're still taking notes.
I think it's really useful footage that we're going to want to access at some point later. All right, I'm good. I'm good.
Okay.
All right. So, I think you should start today cuz I feel like I started the last time.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, do we have a little intro that we do, or like, do we need to record that?
Um do you want to do an intro? I think we probably should.
Welcome back, everybody, to oh God, sorry.
Oh no.
Oh, wait,
Let's keep that in the intro. That sounds perfect.
I was remembering the tagline. Uh, Coffee break classroom. Thank you so much. That's so bad. Welcome back to Coffee Break Classroom. Uh, we're here for episode 2 today, and we're going to be talking about kind of our journeys, how we got into teaching, our origin stories, as we put in our notes here.
We're clearly superheroes. Some teachers are superheroes. I'm not sure I classify, but some are.
I don't know. I think you're there. Um,
Welcome back, everyone. We're excited that you decided to come back and join us for another hour. I'm Amanda. I
I'm
teach
Ben.
geology.
Oh, sorry. I'm
Oh,
I'm Ben. I teach engineering, science, and physics.
we're going to get so much better at this. It's going to be
I
crazy.
know it's fine. It's just like what we tell our students, we got to give ourselves a chance to grow here. Um,
Growing
yeah,
left and right.
yeah, we're going to be talking, like I said, about our origin stories today, and also a little bit about why we're doing this podcast, and how we got to this kind of point in our lives. And I guess I'm starting. Um,
Ben, I think this is an important moment in our friendship because
oh
I feel like we've never talked about this before. I feel
no,
like there's some vulnerability that's about to happen here. I think you're going to learn some things about me that you don't know. And I'm excited to watch your face while this happens.
that's fun. Yeah, because I don't know. Like, I mean, when you and I met each other, like it was through our teaching and creativity center, and so like we just kind of like met where we were and like hit the ground running with the stuff that we were doing. And like, we never really talked about why we got into teaching or how we ended up at MCC in the first place.
Not at
So
all.
yeah. Um, right. So I think me wanting to teach was something that started in high school actually. Like I decided in high
Really?
school that I wanted to teach. Yes. So like
That's
I
wild.
it's wild for me that like and when I have that conversation with people about like what is it that you wanted to do, like, oh, I decided like as a junior in high school, like that I knew what I wanted to do. Um, it was actually in a physics class. Like I was taking a physics class.
Oh boy.
I know. Yeah. I was in high school physics and I was like an advanced placement kid, which means that I was taking my math classes and my science classes like a year earlier. So
You
I've
were
like
like the most popular boy in
I did not have that many friends in high school.
Oh, I bet you did. You're awesome.
Uh I was taking a physics, so I was taking my math and science classes ahead of schedule, which meant it was usually me in a room full of like people that were like a grade older than I was.
Yep.
And I actually remember I have a very fun story. Like when I was in ninth grade, I was taking earth science, and there was a girl in there that decided she was going to call me Dr. Ben because I was super smart and like
Come
helping
on,
with
your
some.
students call you Dr.
my
Ben
my students
now.
call me that now. So I don't know if she called it or what. But when I was a junior, I was taking physics, and like I just got it, and I thought it was really neat the way that it's the way that the world works, really. Like it's kind of the language that explains why everything happens the way that it does. That we like in nature. I'm not going to account for human beings, but it's like physics explains the way that like nature happens, and I thought that was really neat to be able to do that kind of stuff. And so I decided and nobody else in my class got it. like, like it's real. Physics is really hard for a lot of people, and that's totally
Oh my
understandable.
God.
And most of the people that I were taking the class with, like, did not understand what was happening. Um, and they, because I got it, like they would come to me for help, and then I would explain stuff, and then they would get it, and I would be like, I really like this. Like,
Uh, it was
yeah,
your superpower,
it was,
even
yeah.
as a young Ben.
Yeah. So like I spent most of that year like helping other people through physics, and that's when I decided that's what I wanted to do. So before that, it had been a couple different things. I think when I was like in middle school, I was going to be a chemical engineer because that's what my dad did, and that's what you do when you're like in
So
school. You're like you do what your parent does.
that was going to be my question. So, do you have other teachers in your family?
So my dad does chemical engineering, and actually I don't know how long he even did that because he worked at a paper mill and then became a manager and then like has been
Cool.
in a bunch of different places. But my mother was a teacher and
Okay.
she taught right up until she gave birth. Like,
That's
and then
awesome.
put in her 2 weeks and then was basically a stay-at-home mother and did some substitution, like did some substituting,
Yep.
as like my sister and I were kind of going through school, but not a lot. So she was a math teacher um
That's awesome.
beforehand, and she actually taught at one of the um I want to say Fort
Yep.
taught at one of the military bases near where we live for up until like basically she gave birth. Like she was pregnant, worked all through her pregnancy, and then gave birth and then raised kids, me and my sister.
So
So-
I ask that because um my mom is a math teacher. And by the way, we have very STEMmy oh, you have a very STEMmy family,
yeah.
STEMmy being
But I
science,
also grew up on
technology.
a horse farm in the
You
middle of
did?
nowhere. So like I always joke that I'm like a weird mix of like
Mm-hmm.
like rural like science and also like just being queer, and it's like I'm like I don't know how I manage all three of those things, and it's like this weird amalgamation. And one friend at one point was just like, "Oh no, it's just because you're great at multitasking." It's like
Is that it?
that's what it is. Yeah.
So my aunt is also a teacher, and I have a couple cousins who are teachers also. And when my kids were in high school, my daughter Isabel was like, "I will never be a teacher because I am going to be the one to stop the cycle of abuse." And I was like, "My job is awesome. What are you?" And anyway, now she's in college and loves college, and she's like, "I'm never leaving college." So
That's so funny.
anyway,
Oh, so
so
so we might get her eventually, is what you're saying.
that's what I'm saying. Chloe, my other daughter, is totally going to be like a college professor. So it is, well, yes. It's a thing. So please go ahead. All right. So
Yeah, no.
so
So I totally that totally is my parents' background, but like it's not anything that I necessarily saw because like it all happened like my mother was teaching before I was born, but that was
right.
definitely there. There was a lot of that kind of vibe like throughout my childhood, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Um and then I think there was one point where I also wanted to be a zoologist at one point because I'm just like, who doesn't
Every
want to
kid
work
does that.
with animals? Yeah. And then I got to my junior year and I was just like, oh yeah, this is what I want to do. Like this is great. Um
That's awesome.
yeah, so like I ended up going to a SUNY school, like majoring in physics, and I also majored in math, because I actually went into my undergrad with like 18 credits completed already from like eight.
Sure.
Yeah, of course, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the way that it was set up at the time is that you could get dual certification to teach high school, because that was my plan initially.
Okay.
So you could do one science and then get certified in another science at the same time as like with a minor. And they were
Okay.
working on putting that program together with physics and math also, because like you could do that with physics and any of the other sciences, and they were going to try and put that together with math as well. So I was like, yes, let's do this. Like I was on board for that. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
taking my physics classes, I'm taking my math classes, I'm throwing in an education class here and there. I get to my junior year of college, and they're like, oh yeah, we're not going to be able to have this program together. Like it's not going to get approved through SUNY by the time that you're ready.
SUNY is
So
great, but slow at many things.
yeah, Yes. So don't fire us.
We love SUNY.
We love SUNY
We
so
work for
much.
SUNY.
SUNY is great. They were telling me that I could just get my master's to teach math and then
Yeah,
like come back and do something later. And I was like, I don't want to do that. Like I've been here for physics this whole time. Like
yeah,
I want to do physics primarily. Um, and at that point, I'd also been in through enough upper division classes where I was like, high school is really restrictive. Like, and I'm so glad, like, can you imagine, like, if things had gone differently? I feel so bad for the way that, like, our high school teachers are treated. And, like, I could not
oh my
imagine
God.
myself in that situation.
They work so hard. K-12 teachers work so hard.
Yes. And, like, my sister teaches in like a 12-1-1 classroom. So she works with a
Mm-hmm.
lot of students in special needs in like a middle school. And like I
Yeah.
know like how much that they have to deal with on top of all the hoops that you have to jump through standards wise. Like you don't really have
Yes.
control over what you're doing in your classroom or how deep you
Right.
go with your content. Like there's not time. And I wanted to be able to do that. And so I decided in my junior year that I was going to just go to grad school and get my PhD and then teach college.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
So
tell me about why you decided to postdoc after you got your PhD. It was not enough school.
I mean, postdoc wasn't really more like kind of taking classes. There were no classes associated with that, but
Right.
it was some additional research experience.
Okay.
Not really knowing where I was going to end up, um, what type of school I was going to end up at, like
Mm-hmm.
having that kind of diversity in my like research background would I felt like would be helpful. Plus, it also just gave me the opportunity to move to California, like for
Hell
two
yeah.
years. Yeah, that actually part of that was that my best friend from college and I always joked about moving out to California together. And then as I was finishing up my PhD, they had a position available as a postdoc out in California, and they were like asking like when I was going to be done. And I was like, oh, I'll finish up my PhD like like this year, right? Like four
No
years for a
problem.
PhD, no problem.
Yeah.
Um, so I did that and I reached out to my best friend and they were coming out of what they were working on and they're like, yeah, let's do it. And so like we planned and lived, we were out in California for 2 years, which was the
That's
time to
awesome.
do it in my
Oh,
life. Was like,
yes.
yeah, like mid 20s, move to California for 2 years, like live it up, then come back when you can't afford it anymore.
Amen.
Um, yeah, so that's partly why. And while I was there, I just kind of got tired of doing all the research and
Yeah.
all of the papers that are associated with it, and I wanted to teach. I wanted to be in the
Yes.
classroom. I wanted to be working with students because that's what it's been about for me. Like it's been about that the entire time.
Yep.
Like when I was going to grad school, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to go into because I knew I just wanted to teach at the end of it, right? And I'm
Right.
looking through all these physics programs and I'm like astrophysics, like biophysics, and I was like, I could probably do biophysics because at least then whatever I'm doing will help people by the end of the day. And then I saw
True.
education research was a thing. And there was somebody doing research like at the boundary of math and physics and how students understand those and relate the two of those. And I'm like, this is what I've been doing my entire life. Like, this is what I've been doing my entire life. Um,
Fun.
yeah, so that was great. But I really just wanted to teach, which kind of is what brought me back to what brought me to where we are now. So
So, did it matter to you? So, we work at a community college. Was that something that was important to you? I don't think, to be honest with you, the majority of folks who are teaching, at least when they get there, I don't think that that's an important thing to them. But was it
that
important to you?
like one of the reasons I wanted to work at a community college was because I wanted to be in the classroom with students, right? Like their
Yep.
research is extra, it's not required. Um, I get to be in the classroom with students as my job, right? And
Yes.
like my promotion and everything is based on that. And like that's what I've been training to do. And I actually had some really nice advice from one of my mentors in my postdoc, and she had said that I needed to, when I was looking for jobs, that I needed to define success for myself, right? Like that there's a lot of this idea that going to an
Yeah.
R1 institution and working at a big research like place is going to be what means that you are successful,
A
but
hundred
that's not
percent.
necessarily the case.
No,
right? That
absolutely.
if being successful for me is like being in a classroom with students, then then there's nothing wrong with that. And there's plenty of people I know in the education research community that are at community colleges now because like that's where they want to be. So
Mm-hmm.
I get to be one of those people.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Um, so my story is very different than yours. And I like to think so. I was thinking about this morning as I was prepping for today,
Mhm.
and I like to think that we become like the people that we needed as we were growing. And so I feel
That is
like
fair.
I've become that person for myself. And I think that actually will tie back into why we're doing this. So I just want you to know I was also smart in high school. I was my valedictorian, which my kids like to
Me
joke
too.
is because were you really?
Yeah, I was.
Job. We're
Yeah.
the biggest loser. Yes.
I gave a whole speech about change because that was a big thing back in 2009.
Oh wow. Yes, it was.
And like when we
You
I
were
made it.
riding the coattails of Obama. Is that what was
Yeah,
happening?
right. That's exactly what was happening. Because I included in my speech a bunch of stuff that was different from when we started. Like I think bootylicious
Nice.
got added to the dictionary like in the 4 years.
Stop.
The like Pluto was no longer a planet, like that kind of stuff.
Yes.
Like so it was a really fun speech.
All of the important things.
That's
So,
so fun.
oh my God. Okay. So, I did not graduate high school in 2009. I was actually a mother in 2009 for a couple of years, but it's fine. So, I went to a SUNY school as well. We did not go to the same SUNY school, nor in the same decade, I'm willing to bet. But
I think you
we
just did the math real quick.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but I went to school and became a geology major because I kind of liked earth science, but I didn't really know so much what I was signing up for. My second weekend in college, our whole department went on a retreat. And we spent the weekend camping and learning geology, and we like collected fossils. And I'm from Buffalo. There's nowhere to camp in Buffalo. When I was a little kid, my brother and I used to camp out in our backyard in like the
Hmm.
suburbs, right? So, but I guess I always had like some weird affinity for that. And so I went started college at the end of the 90s, and it was a different time back then, and nowhere is more explicitly illustrated than this story. So, my second weekend in college, we were camping, and I was sitting around this huge campfire with some of my professors and some of the new students, and I knew like three people. And I had no idea how to set up a tent, but we were like all drinking beer together and talking, and I was like, oh my God, I think I found my people. And like that
Hmm.
weekend, my friend Irene, who I met that weekend, and my friend Stephanie, we drank too much beer, and we were laying on the ground, and Irene taught me to identify like the Orion constellation. And like, but so I felt like I was in the right spot.
I
Um,
had one of those moments too. I think when I was in grad school, I think there was a conference. I don't know which year it was, if it was the first one or second one, but because they do a conference in Bar Harbor, Maine, like it was
mm,
very close to where I was going to grad school. And so we all
yes,
like got to go as a grad student because I kind of got to help out with some of the stuff. And then just like
yes,
being able to just hang out on the coast and like drinking a bunch of beers with like a bunch of really nerdy people that are doing your kind
yes.
of education research. It's just
Oh,
like I'm like, okay, these are the people. Yeah.
it's like
Margarita
stupid
Tuesday. Yeah.
Margarita Tuesday. Well, geologists, if you want to Google geology and beer, there is a strong correlation. Um, that's true. The internet says it's true, so it must be. So I think my advisor as an undergrad was awesome. And so when I was a junior, he was my paleontology and stratigraphy teacher, which doesn't mean anything for most people. But he was doing my schedule with me, and he's like, when are we going to do research? And I was like, I mean, is that something I'm supposed to do? And he's like, yes. And so he was my research advisor, and he had a couple students, and we used to have lunch together once a week. And I was in my junior year when I was doing this, and he was like, and I was like, what am I supposed to like do next? And he was like, "Well, you're going to grad school." He said it like it was the most obvious thing. And I was like, "I am?" And he's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "What do I do?" And he's like,
Did you
"Well, look
not know
through."
this?
No, I had no idea. My mother had gone to grad school, but like geology and like education, they're very different.
Yeah.
So he told me, look at people's websites, think about where you might want to live for 2 years. And so I ended up at Chapel Hill, which I don't even know how I got into. Like, to be honest, in hindsight, I was lucky. It was good. And
Yeah.
in addition to luck, like I had the most awesome advisor. A lot of my cohorts did not, but my advisor, oh my God, Tim, if you're listening, what's up, Tim? Um, so Tim is the best, and he is at Penn State now. And in fact, he left for Penn State at the end of my first semester. He called me and my good friend Trent, who was also his student at the time. He called us into his office. Trent was a doctoral student, I was a master's student. And he's like, "Hey guys, I got this amazing offer to go and teach and be the chair at Penn State." And he was like, "I got to take this." I didn't know at the time Penn State was one of like the top 5 geology
Mhm.
departments in the country. And
Okay.
I was like, "I just got here. Like I and I was engaged at the time, and I was like, I can't leave now." So I didn't. So Tim had a bunch of money, and I was far enough along in my research at that point, oddly enough, that he was like, "You can finish up here, you can, and we can finish your master's remotely." Well, once Tim left, like I think I went home, and my father, who is a very he's a blue collar man, he was like, "So what are you gonna do with this degree?" And I was doing the coolest research on paleoceanography. And I was like, "Well, I love what I do. I don't really think there's a huge demand for paleoceanographers." And he was like, "You should probably figure out what you're doing." So incidentally, at the time, so I spent like, and I don't even think Tim knows this, and it doesn't matter now, obviously, but like for the next year, I volunteered and then I was hired at the US Geological Survey in the water division of Raleigh. And I went in and they couldn't believe that I just wanted to work for free. I was like, "I don't know what I'd like. Throw me on any rig you have. I will do whatever. I want field experience." And so I was doing that. The other
Like
thing,
rig? Like did you end up like out in the ocean like doing stuff?
no,
Oh,
sadly I
okay.
did not. I It was like a water division. I didn't know what the hell I was talking about. But
Okay. Because
I
I
did
don't know what you're
mostly
talking about.
groundwater stuff. I did
Yeah,
groundwater
it's always
stuff.
groundwater with you.
I'm
Which is no,
sorry.
I'm just
It's
no, I'm joking. I'm joking. It's just we spent
Oh, you
our
know what I also did? While I was at the USGS, there was this guy also named Tim there, and he like took me under his wing, and he taught me to model nutrient loads, because at the time they were having these giant fish kills in the Neuse River estuary, and I'm sorry, I'm getting a little in the weeds here, but North Carolina, they have a lot of pig farms, and when it would rain, the catchment or the lagoon that
Yep.
would catch all the pig feces would overflow and go into the river, and then they would have algae blooms, and then there would be fish kills downstream. So they were taking anyway, he taught me to model pig poop moving down the Neuse River estuary. So thank you, other Tim.
This is a
um
wild backstory. You're
it
right. I was not ready for this.
No, we're not even at the good stuff yet.
Oh,
So
really? Oh, cool.
no.
I gotta buckle up.
Yes, buckle up. um So at the same time, when I was in grad school, my tuition was deferred because I was a teaching assistant. So at the end of my first year, I was named head teaching assistant, which I don't know how that happened, but
That
I
took me
was.
2 years, so yeah,
Yeah.
that's
And at Geneseo, in my undergrad, they had let us be teaching assistants as well. Like you
Mhm.
had to do it at first with like like a professor, and then you could be on your own. So I had some teaching experience, and it was like fun. And honestly, there was no better way to learn. So I don't have like the personality for geology research. Geology researchers are super detail oriented, like just, and they have like a level of fascination with
Hmm.
Certain things that it never captured me. There was never like, so my undergrad advisor, he is like an expert at middle to upper Devonian conodonts, right? And he's like one of probably two people in the
Bless you.
across the
Yeah.
globe. Yeah, I know. And I never had like one little thing that I was like, I want to do this forever.
Yeah.
So I was faxing. I was faxing my my master's thesis to Tim in Penn State. And we Skyped one day. And I was just thinking about this before we got on this call. And I was like, how did Skype have like a 15-year head start on Zoom? And who uses
Yeah.
Skype is gone now. Anyway,
It's gone. Yeah, I don't know what happened.
I don't either. So anyway, Tim and I were talking on Skype. And he was like, "You should like, what are you gonna do after this?" I'm like, "I don't know," because it turned out I wasn't really very good at any of the field stuff. Like I could do it, but once they learned I knew how to use a computer, I never could leave the USGS. I was like locked in a class. I was locked in my office doing
Please keep
modeling
modeling.
forever.
Yeah, keep
Yes,
modeling the pig poop down the river,
yes.
please.
Give her some more pig poop data. This girl loves that stuff. That shit.
Wait, did you just stop yourself from swearing? Like, you did that loves
And
that
then
stuff, and
swore.
then you stopped yourself and then swore.
Correct. That's
Okay,
correct.
just checking.
So here's the random bit. So Tim is like, "You should teach," and I was like, I don't know about that. So I go home from school and I'm exercising. And I swear to God, this is like in my mind anyway, this is the same day. There's a knock at my door and I answer the door and there's a girl selling magazines. And I was like, sure, I'll buy a, she was raising money for something. I think I told her I would buy a Cosmopolitan because that's the sort of girl I was back in the day. Um, and she was like, I actually need you to buy like 3 magazines for me to get this. And I was like, well, I like to travel, so I got some traveling magazine. And then I was like, I mean, I'm a scientist. I guess I should get like Scientific American. And she was like, "You're a scientist?" And I was like, "Yeah."
Was
She's
she
like, "I
like,
don't know,
you look
you
normal?
seem you seem like a teacher." And like
Oh,
for whatever reason, like every hair on my head stood up and I was like, "Oh my God, I think I'm a teacher." So so like there's no reflection in any of these decisions, right? Like this is literally like just something comes into my head and I'm like, "Go. This is what you're supposed to do. Go." Um
well, it
so
clearly
I
worked out.
I did. It worked out.
Yeah.
So wait, I get a grad school offer in Rochester and I move back here and I start going to grad school full time. And I'm like 23, which is ridiculous. So because I'm in grad school classes with women and men who have been teaching forever. Like they have
Yeah.
oodles of teaching experience and I feel like every day it's like in football like we're talking about the game and we're like planning for the game but I'm never playing the game. Like they leave class and they're playing the game and I am going home to read some papers. So I was like this isn't, and there were other complications there, but by the end of that summer or by the beginning of that summer I was like I don't know that this is the right fit for me. And so I looked on our school website and there was an opening for an adjunct. And I was like, I could probably, maybe I should do this. Maybe this feels more right. And I looked at the list of faculty, and on the list of faculty was my now chair, Jessica. And Jessica and I went to the same undergrad. And I was like, I wonder if I know her. Like, I think I maybe met her at an alumni event. So I sent her an email and I was like, hey, I was just wondering, I think we know each other. And she does remember me because I was super obnoxious as an undergrad, but she, which is hard to believe.
You're best friends now. So
I
like,
know we are. It worked
yeah.
out. So so I was like, is this like already really filled? Like people do that, or were you
Hmm.
and or are you just filling like an adjunct pool? She's like, no, it's real. You should apply. And then she goes, so if you wait a couple of weeks, we literally just had a colleague announce his retirement. So if you come back in like 3 weeks or a month, we're gonna have a full-time job opening. So I apply for the adjunct position, and like a month later, the I apply for the full-time job. Fast forward 6 weeks, and I'm hired. Like I don't understand. I still know, other than Jessica was like, I feel like I could, I think I was definitely hired on my potential because you have to do a little teaching demo when you're hired.
Yep.
And, but again, super duper random. I don't think at the time, I know at the time that there was nothing about the mission of a community college that was like I was connected with in any way. But as I started working at in a community college, I realized that like one of the things that I am super passionate about though is like fighting for people without a voice.
100%.
Um, right. And so when I got the opportunity to teach, like first of all, my first lecture was a nightmare. It was the first lecture I ever gave was like as a professional, which is ridiculous. But I really connected with students and I was
Yeah.
like, "Oh my god, this feels so good."
Hmm.
And then I just saw students who had challenges that I never had growing up.
Yep.
I didn't grow up with any sort of like a privileged upbringing by my children's standards, but
Yeah. Yeah.
I met students who were working so hard,
Hmm.
and so I think that passion for like wanting to fight for people who don't have a voice or don't have power is something that is absolutely like just shaped my whole life. So not only with teaching, um, but also in my career, like I had a term as the faculty senate president, and I was in faculty senate leadership for a long time before that. Um, which, if you Google, you'll see that there was plenty of standing up for people who didn't feel like they had a voice. And even now, so I took a step back from that for a while. And so now I'm doing more work with like our union. But again, it's just always centered on that idea
Yeah.
of like justice for people and social justice.
Yeah. I want to touch on that too a little bit because like one of the reasons that I want to be at a place like where we are at a community college is because I feel like that's where I can make the most impact. Like
Yes.
that was something that somebody brought up that our current candidate in the dean pool brought up today is
Yes.
wanting to make impact on students, and like this is a place where I can make the biggest impact. If I was at a 4-year school, like there would be students who would definitely benefit from having me as an instructor, but
Yeah.
like I can do a lot more here. And
Mm-hmm.
like I think that's what is the biggest draw for me is like wanting to be able to make a difference and being able to stand up and help our students. And I have been very like I've been activated, I think, in the past year to kind of like be standing up for our students and things that aren't just within our environment.
For sure.
I think one of the things in I think about this when I was in grad school, when I would leave to go TA a class, I would always like pick up my stuff, step out of the room, and be like, "Time to go change lives." Like that. That's been like that's my little mantra that I say to
Yep.
myself before I go teach
Mm-hmm.
class.
Do you still do that?
No, I don't. I mean, because it's constantly happening. Like if I was like in the middle of research, if I spent my whole day doing research and went to go teach one class, probably. But
Right.
now I spend like literally 10 to like 5 every day, like with some
Changing
student
lives.
trailing around behind me.
So, when I came to you with this bananas idea of starting a podcast, what about it appealed to you? And then I'll tell you why it appealed to me.
Yeah, I think it goes back to that impact a little bit too, is like I have something like it's my training in pedagogy, like the stuff that I do in the classroom, like there is stuff that I feel like I do well
Mm-hmm.
that could be beneficial to other people. And like I want to be here to be able to share that kind of stuff out so that way we're making a larger impact for
Yeah.
students everywhere.
So, on the continuing with that thought, um, one of the things that we touched on in our first episode is just the idea that, like, we are not necessary. You are trained as a teacher, but most
Right.
teachers or at colleges, whether you're community college or especially at a 4-year research school, the time you spend learning to teach is so minimal and largely voluntary.
Hmm.
And I think that teaching itself is, at least at the college level, is can be, if you're not careful, so isolating.
Yes.
Um, because you are hired as an expert, but and you are an expert in your discipline, but you're
Hmm.
not an expert teacher. And how are you ever supposed to become an expert teacher if you're supposed to present yourself as an expert teacher, but really you're not, right? And on the
Yeah.
inside, we were talking earlier today about imposter syndrome, but like you're standing in front of a classroom and you reflexively teach the way you were taught.
Oh my gosh, yes, 100%. Like I bring this up all the time, like
Yes.
especially when I'm talking about equity and grading practices,
Mm-hmm.
because like that is such a big thing for me is that you teach the way that you were taught. And if the thing is
Yes.
like that means that the only people that we're saying like are allowed to have an education are the people who were able to survive, right? Like we're here
Yes.
because we survived like
Yes.
those STEM classrooms, those weed out
We were the
classes.
biggest dorks.
Yeah, right. And if we keep doing things the same way, we're saying that the only students that are allowed to get through those classes are the ones that were like us.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I want to like take down the veil of college teaching and
Mm,
like in an accessible way let people know about easy things that they can do in their classrooms like this week, and how you can, and that everything is not going to work out right. I think you and I both have
yeah.
experiences where you can craft the best lesson and then you get there and it doesn't fly at all. um
And then it's
so
about how you pivot, right?
yes,
Like, yeah.
yes. So I was thinking about this today because I was like, when you start, you only have what you were taught. And it's like having one tool in your toolkit, but like
Hmm.
not every job is best fixed with a hammer, right? And so as uh as you go on and you learn new things and you learn new techniques and you have enough confidence in your teaching that you can pause when you can sense that something isn't working, and then you go in your toolkit, and over time you go from having just a hammer to having like the tool world section of Lowe's, and you're like,
Yeah.
this feels like it needs a chisel. And you can be a little bit more refined. But I mean, I think that I've become a competent teacher because over time learned to be a more reflective person. And
Mm,
I think I've always been, just I think because of the way my parents raised me, a relatively humble person, even though I'm like obnoxious and like a smartass. I think I've worked hard to be open to learning new things and to know
hmm.
that no one has like all of the knowledge of how something can be done. So,
That's been a big part of it for me too, I think, is that I yeah, I was thinking about my faculty evaluation from last fall,
mm,
and just how like it was really hard for me to come up with areas that I want to grow into because I literally spend every single day like trying to grow and like as an instructor
yes.
working with my students, and I'm already so engaged on campus. So it's just like what more
Mm-hmm.
do I already do? And I also feel like this is just kind of a natural extension of some of the stuff that you and I have been doing. Because like when I got to our school, like I just kind of hit the ground running. Like I did that thing I do in the classroom where it's like, oh, I have information that other people could benefit from access to, and like start doing presentations immediately. Like start sharing about building community in the classroom, pedagogy, like how researchers think about the way that students think about content.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then like we read the grading for equity book, and then it was a matter of like starting to share that, and like that has kind of gotten a lot of traction at our institution.
Yeah.
And I think I was looking at my like annual faculty development report and had like 8 presentations like over
Yeah.
the course of like a year, and I'm like, oh, this is a lot. Like I do a lot, and they're all different, right? Like I wasn't really
Yeah.
even repeating anything. So I just think like there's space for us to grow. And I think the other thing that's probably going to be nice about this podcast is it's not going to be all learning all the time. We're going to have that like teachers lounge vibe where we can
Hell
just like
yeah.
talk about whatever we want to talk about, alternate between
Hmm.
some fun stuff and some educational stuff, which is what I like to do when I'm advising student clubs also.
Totally.
Yeah.
So when you and I met, it was when the previous coordinator for the Teaching and Creativity Center was leaving,
Yep.
and Terry and I were asked to be interim coordinators. And so I always like, I love professional development. One of the few classes I took in grad school before I started teaching at MCC was on professional development.
Wow.
And I've been on like every, I've probably been on half a dozen professional development committees, because I love it. Like, it's so much
Yeah.
fun. So,
I never thought I would end up doing this. So like
really,
yeah, no, I never thought I would go down the professional development route. I was planning to just like teach and I'm just like, "Oh no, this is like a way I can contribute." So,
yes.
yeah.
So, part of the reason I took the job was actually to meet people like you, because we came back from COVID, and
Hmm.
the first semester I was back on campus, I was like, who the hell are all these new people? We had a tremendous amount of turnover. One of the things that I love, but is also a challenge of higher ed, is that teachers stay there for, and so does staff, right? For decades. Like, so you become, your department de facto becomes like this sort of hopefully functional family unit almost, but we all have moments of dysfunction. But administrators are not like that. Like, for we we've had longer running administrators in the past, but we have very rapid turnover, which is not unique. Um, so I came back to campus and I was like, I definitely want to get to know some of these new people. And I felt like we had a culture that was really worth preserving at the college. And I wanted to be part of enculturating the next generation of MCC faculty. And so that was why I did the first and the second year faculty series, which is our 2 year onboarding series. So, as an educational researcher with plenty of experience, tell me what that was like for you.
I was so bored.
Oh,
Yeah, like not in yours. Not like yours was like the second year is a little bit more focused on building community. The first
yes.
year is more about triage because you're getting a bunch of people who have never taught before
Yes.
usually, right? So like what do you
Mm-hmm.
do in the classroom? How do you build a course information sheet?
Oh
What
my God, that
what
totally,
is
yes.
what's summative informative assessment?
Yes.
um and like I already knew all of that stuff and most of the things that were being introduced is like here's a cool teaching trick and I'm like I already do that. Like I already know how to do that.
Yeah.
Um so I got a couple things out of it. Like I go again with that open mind kind of thing, but then I also went and kind of was like, I know how some of this stuff works. Like I can kind of present when it's appropriate, like my own experiences with these things and be able to share
Yeah.
that in the first year. In the second year, like there was a lot more about like what's the community like, but there was still some stuff there that was just
Oh
like
yeah.
repeat for me. Like for somebody
Yeah.
who's got a bunch of training in terms of like pedagogy and even
Mm-hmm.
designed like curriculum material and tested it.
Yes.
So yeah.
Oh, for sure. For sure. Yes. I was shocked when so our friend Natasha and I co-led that first year faculty series the
Hmm.
same year that I was leading it with you. And we went around the table and we're like, "Hey, what are some questions you have, first year folks?" And one of the faculty members was like, "How do you make a syllabus?" And I was
Hmm.
like, "Oh no, class starts in like 2 days." Like, we
Hmm.
so it was absolutely a triage. And so getting faculty what they needed when they needed it was a lot.
Hmm.
But it was such a transformative experience for me. Like, some of the folks that I went through my first and second year faculty series with, like, for the first 5 years, most faculty, or at least back when I started, um, it was like, just learn to teach, just get
Hmm.
teaching down, learn to teach, and learn a little bit about how this place runs, and some of the structures that exist here. But it, so we don't necessarily do that anymore. We also, I don't know, have been hiring folks who, some of them have tons of teaching experience and some of them have none. And so it's how you differentiate that learning, to be able to make sure everyone is getting a little something out of it. But community, community is super duper important. We necessarily, I don't think that community can be overstated in terms of its importance in the
Hmm.
classroom or in a college.
No,
Yeah.
I agree 100%. Because I was
No, give
thinking
it.
about, well, so what I did my senior year of high school, right? Because like I've had this weird, oh, also like a fun thing where you're talking about like being lucky getting to grad school. I was
Yeah.
like, I only ever applied to one undergrad, and I only ever applied to one grad school,
Are you
and
serious?
then I only ever applied to one postdoc. Like,
I only applied to one like job.
yeah, I was
Yeah.
applying to I applied to maybe like five jobs, but
Uh-huh.
um I knew where I wanted to go, and like getting into a state school like it's usually not that hard, so I wasn't stressed out about it, but that was
Yeah.
very dumb in hindsight. But like one grad the plan for grad school, I was already planning on taking a year off. So like
Okay.
I was going to take a year off, I was going to teach, and I was like if I don't get in, then like I can just keep take another year off and keep working. I was
Yep.
working as an adjunct actually
Okay.
between my undergrad and grad school. But
Cool.
my fun story was in my senior year of high school, because I decided I wanted to teach. So I actually spent my study halls as a senior. Talk about being dorky in the
Oh
physics labs.
no.
Yeah, I was helping out in the physics labs. I was taking a participation in government class and had to do like an internship thing. And so I interned with my physics teacher in his sixth grade classroom. And then I actually just spent the second, like, half of my senior year still keeping on doing that, even though my class was over. Um, I had like a great time doing that. And so like I just knew that like I wanted to teach this entire time. So like I was actually working with him, like
That's
preparing his
wild.
sixth grade plus lessons, like helping run them. And I actually got to run a couple myself. But there was one where we were making electromagnets, which is basically just taking a wire
Holy hell.
and wrapping it around a nail. But there was like a cork board, which was maybe about an inch thick, and then
Uh-huh.
this like really long nail. And the students had to hammer the nail into like the cork board. And like I'm walking around, and there was this one student who was definitely my favorite at the time, who like had much less of the nail showing than would be reasonable. And I was like,
Okay.
Aaron, stop. What are you doing? And like I was like, you've got it's into the desk now. Like he nailed the board into the desk because again, like sixth grader, hammer, nail. Like it's just going for
One
it.
tool.
Yeah,
One tool.
He's a PE teacher now, so he's doing great
That was
stuff.
his strength.
He is doing great stuff. He is doing great stuff. He actually met at like a PD thing with my sister because she
So
teaches at
fun.
the same school and was like, I feel like I disappointed your brother. And I was like, no, tell him no, because he didn't go into science. And I was like, no, he didn't have to go into science. Yeah, it's really
So
funny.
I have a story about my high school physics teacher. I don't remember his name, but he had like a ponytail and he would always wear band t-shirts, right? And
It's a
so there
vibe.
were like five kids in my physics class. But his most distinctive feature is that he was missing his index finger. I promise I'm not going to tell a story like this every
This is more
pod.
hand stuff. Yeah.
I know. I was just realizing that this is another story. Anyway, the whole semester long, I tell this story to my students, and I'll tell you why. The
Yeah.
whole semester long, a whole year long, I was like, what happened to his finger? And so he finally told us one day. He was asking a question and on a problem we were doing. And by the way, I didn't understand physics at all. I got through it and he gave me a physics award, but I think it's cuz I was like the coolest loser. Like
I
I was not good at physics. What?
I got 100 on the Regents.
I got a I don't remember what I got. I got a physics award. I also won the earth science award.
That's good.
We
Yeah.
can have a like a loser like a dork
We're not
competition.
fighting. Like I'm just saying, like that was the one
We're not
Regents I got
fighting, but
100
I
on.
win.
No, oh yeah, you win. I'll let you win.
Okay. So
I've got
anyway,
longer left.
you can be the biggest loser when I retire or I'm fired. So so one day he asked us for the answer to a question and it was hard. I think we were in quantum physics, which is not real.
In high
And he,
school?
yes.
Okay.
So he was like, "What's the answer? What did you write on your paper?" And no one would say anything. And he was like, "Let me tell you a story. A couple years ago, the chemistry teacher, went on sabbatical, and I had to teach chemistry for a year. I don't really know chemistry, but I was asked to teach chemistry. And we had a lab, and things went wrong in the lab.
Oh God.
He holds up his hand and he's like, "This is what happens in real life when things go wrong. When you mix the wrong chemicals together, there are consequences. There are no consequences for answering this question wrong."
That can't be true. Like
I
that can't
swear to God,
actually
it's
be.
true.
No, I mean, I believe you that he told that story. I don't know if that story is true from his perspective. Like
I
I
don't
don't.
know.
Yeah,
I don't
I.
know.
That's wild.
But I still tell my
I do
students
love
that
that.
all the time because I'm like, there's no consequences. Be
I do
wrong.
love
Who
that.
cares? Who cares?
Yeah.
This doesn't matter. None of this matters. You're here to try. And
The
how can
worst
you
you're
learn?
gonna do is lick a rock that tastes funny.
That's right.
Yeah.
There's only a few of them. So it's fine. It's fine. That feels like the right place to end.
Yeah, that's good. I like that.
I'm not going to tell a story about, I don't even know how to classify this. I'm
We'll
not
see
going
how
to
you can work it into formative assessment.
deal.
Okay.
Deal.
We can do the 1, 2, 3, 5. Like we can do the fifth to five is actually what somebody
What are
called it,
you
and I
talking about?
performative assessment for next week.
The fist to five.
Yeah, so like how comfortable do you feel with this? Or like yeah.
Oh, oh.
And then like five is really
I've never
comfortable.
heard that.
Zero.
It's not
I
a.
know, I know. Somebody called it fifth to five, and I was like, what? Yeah. I was confused, but then I actually do think that is a more appropriate name.
I
You can
love
cut
it.
that part out though. We'll save it for next week.
I'll leave it as a teaser.
Yeah.
Join us next week for Coffee Break Classroom, Brewed for Higher Ed.
I thought you were gonna forget the name that time.